Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and welcome back to another midweek jaunt. Joining me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all those ghosts, goblins, and ghouls out there. I've got an interesting riddle for you.
And I might have an interesting wrong answer.
I don't know. You got that last one right.
I did.
I am still baffled with the way that you deduced that.
I think all of us are.
Here it goes. Look in my face. I am somebody. Look in my back. I am nobody. What am I?
Look in my face. I am somebody. Look in my back. I am nobody. Am I a mirror?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah?
No, you are getting these riddles. There is something
Pew, pew.
I cannot even. Well, I know if between going to the Sphinx, you're going to be my right-hand man right there.
No, Sphinx freak me out.
You don't want to answer the Sphinx's riddles?
No, I'm good. Normally, they're super intimidating characters in any form of novel or entertainment. I don't know if I could handle sitting in front of a Sphinx.
Well, for any of our new listeners, I, Voyse, scour Reddit in search of interesting, funny, and dramatic stories, and I share them with Timstradamus, where we go ahead and give our perspectives, and we look forward to hearing your perspective as well, regardless of whether we disagree with it or not.
I always love how you end that.
Because it's true. Whether we disagree or not, if anything, hearing or reading other people's viewpoints is very insightful, and it allows me time to reflect on the subject more.
Timstradamus, you suck. Regardless, we enjoy it.
We do. However, I would like to also add to that, I truly do appreciate all the compliments, whether it's from our banter back and forth or because of my little eclectic designs in the back. I also appreciate all the positivity that also gets thrown our way.
Oh yeah, we love our community. You guys are amazing. You make it so easy for us to come on and spend a little bit of time because our daily lives are very jam-packed, as most people can imagine. Not unlike everyone else, by the way, but it makes it a little bit easier to come and spend the little time we do have to come and do this.
Definitely.
So now that we have all of that soppy stuff out of the way, let's get on to Hydration Wednesday.
Hydration Wednesday! Please don't forget to stay hydrated out there. It's actually really important for your health. I know it's super silly, but I think it's something so simple that some of us just forget when we get really busy. And before we witchy fly our way into these stories, if you're interested in following along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to share my inheritance with my siblings, even though they're struggling? So here's some context. I, 28 female, am the youngest of 3 siblings. My parents recently passed away unexpectedly and left behind a will. In the will, my parents left me the majority of their estate, including their house and some savings. My older siblings, 34 female and 32 male, were left significantly less, but they were given a fair amount too. The reasoning behind this, according to my parents, is that I've always been the one taking care of them, helping them out financially, and managing the house. My siblings, on the other hand, have been pretty absent. They've always struggled with maintaining jobs, and I've bailed them out financially several times. My parents believed I would use the inheritance responsibly, whereas they weren't sure about my siblings. Here's where things get tricky. Both of my siblings are now in a financial crisis. They've come to me asking if I'd be willing to share more of my inheritance to help them out. They're struggling with rent, and one of them has medical bills they can't cover. They've accused me of being selfish and not doing the right thing, since I have more than they do now. The thing is, I've already helped them out so many times over the years, often at the cost of my own financial security. I feel like my parents left things this way for a reason, and I should honor their wishes. I've worked hard to get where I am, and I feel like constantly bailing out my siblings won't teach them to be more responsible. I'm not rolling in cash either. I'm still working hard to build my own life and future. Now, my siblings have been telling our extended family that I'm greedy and heartless for not sharing more of the inheritance, and a lot of them agree. I'm feeling a lot of guilt, but I'm also frustrated because I don't think it's fair that I'm expected to keep rescuing them. So, am I the a-hole for refusing to share my inheritance with my struggling siblings?
'Tis peak, my lord. Look, the OP starts this off with saying, when the parents passed, everyone was given some form of inheritance. She just got a little bit more than everyone else because of how she contributed to them. And in their eyes, they thought that she would be the most responsible. That's their money to give to whom they want. They didn't see it fit giving it to the eldest and the middle child. Why that was any of their business, how much you got, was kind of interesting. I'm not certain how they came along that information. Now, I understand will readings. I've been to a couple of those. Things do get disclosed. I'm not certain if that's how this happened, but it is interesting that they know that information. So maybe that's me making a bigger deal out of something that's not, but it's just one of those things that popped up in my head. She says she's already helped out her siblings several times. The one thing you're going to have to come to terms with, OP, is that 34 and 32, I think, is the other siblings.
Correct.
At those ages, they're not going to suddenly just learn that you're going to not help them anymore. It sounds like your siblings feel owed that money, which is why they're coming to you to grab more of it. Everyone goes through tough times. I understand medical bills and, if you lost a job, things can get pretty tight. But they were also given inheritance money. What happened with that? You've already done enough for them where it's not warranted to keep being their parent, essentially.
My worry is that they even said that they've helped them before at almost the risk of their own financial security.
Never do that. It's something that we all struggle with, because the first thing you think about when you hear someone struggling is you wanting to help. And sometimes we can help to the detriment of ourselves. A lot of us, especially when we're younger, can have those problems. You do not owe them a penny, and that's exactly how you should be stating it. At this point, it sounds like you gave that inch, and they've been taking ever since. Be secure in the fact that the reason why it wasn't left to your siblings was a decision made by your parents. That was their money. It was entrusted to you. So you get to use it. Don't feel bad for you using something that was gifted to you. On you.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. Redditors were saying that OP's parents gave them the money that they deemed was fair. And if extended family is so worried about the financial well-being of OP's siblings, then they can financially help them out instead.
I like how that's in the a-hole's bag of tricks, is to always go to extended family to complain about someone when they don't get what they want.
Because then they can peer pressure you into doing it. Now, I will say, I agree with, there was a handful of Redditors that said, look, take an Excel spreadsheet. Oh, I love Excel, Timstradamus. Take an Excel spreadsheet. Put down all of the money that you've helped out your siblings with. And when you have this extended family come to you, go ahead and share that and say, what have you contributed to their financial well-being? I know that sounds petty, but it's my kind of petty. In the end, it's not OP's responsibility. They shouldn't feel guilted. I think when you go through life expecting for others to bail you out because that's the easiest route, you're not adulting to the point where you can figure out your own problems first. Now, I will say there is no shame in asking for help when it really hits the fan. But when you see that consistently happening with certain individuals, a lot of the times it's because they don't even care to budget themselves to try and help themselves out of that situation first.
They're just taking advantage of you.
And that for me is a very sad aspect in some relationships. So let's go to our next story and see what you think about a troll on the road. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my new neighbor to use my road for access? Hello, Reddit. In my country, there is a saying, if you want to live in the forest, you have to buy the forest. So we did. Me and my husband's... I knew you were going to... I knew eventually. So we did. Me and my husband's life dream was to live somewhere private. And a few years ago, we finally did it. COVID made home office possible. So there was no reason to live in the city anymore. So we sold our apartment and bought a nice house which was surrounded by forest. Our closest neighbor is 400 meters away behind a grove of trees. Historically, there used to be a road going from the front of our house to the next house, and the road connected two parallel roads, both leading to the nearest town. The house next to us has been empty for 30 years, and even before that, the people who lived there used the entrance on their side, as back then, both roads leading to the town were gravel. So the last time the road was used as a road was even before the previous owner got the place in the 60s. So nature has taken over that part between the two houses, but the path is still passable with vehicles. This summer, someone bought the neighboring land with the remains of the house to build their home there, which is fine. One day, I saw a lady driving through our driveway on the path leading to the next house, so I jumped on the ATV and followed and asked, "Why are you driving on our road?" And the lady answered, "Well, we thought we were going to use this road because the entrance this way leads to the paved road." I pointed out that we have a sign, "Private road, enter only with permission." She replied, "I looked it up. It used to be a public road in the 50s. I told her, "Not my problem. Please don't use our road." The government let everyone privatize many small roads in the 90s in my country, so they don't have an obligation to take care of those, so it is our private road. I get why she is mad. The road our driveway leads into is paved, and they have to use a gravel road, and it is about a 10-kilometer drive into town. They thought they would use our driveway to access the better road. I told her that they can't drive there, and she called me an a-hole for that. We bought the place with the idea of privacy. Other people using our driveway would mean no privacy. Later, I got a call from some local district office, and they told me that it is not nice to deny others access to their home, and again, I explained that they have access. They, the officials themselves, made the road private decades ago, and the official told me that this was not nice of me. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I'm asking about am I the a-hole part? No need to discuss legal part here. I know the law. Now, let me just go ahead and add some extra notes. Our OP said that the distance to the town is the same regardless of whichever road the neighbor takes. Okay. So they're not cutting their time short. But that OP paid more to have that privacy.
Okay. Well, it sounds like this person knows their laws. He said the country gave them access to make things roads private in the 90s. So they did. There was a sign that said it was a private road. They continued to do it. Obviously, he let them know. End of story. This one's pretty clear. At some point, you do have to lay the boundary that this is private property. While I may or may not agree with how he went about it, chasing her down, that's neither here nor there. It sounds like the ante-up was that she contacted the local
district
government and had them have a word, pulled the Malfoy. Wait till my father hears about this. And it didn't work out. So, OP, you're not the a-hole. You're going to have a spicy relationship with your neighbors now, though. So that'll be fun to deal with for however long they choose to live there. Remember this. Sometimes it can be better to have civil conversations. I don't know how you went about it. You say you hopped on the ATV, and I'm not certain if you went ahead and barked at her or however you chose to have that conversation, but it sounds like it miffed her enough that she called someone for this. Now, I'm not saying you're at fault here. What I am saying is I've learned this from Voyse. Using honey sometimes goes a lot further than just being irate and telling people you're angry.
That would be the vinegar.
So, the vinegar. Having tact can make your life easier.
I do agree with that. So the consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For Redditors, as long as OP is following the law wherever they are, then they don't need to share a road that is private. My understanding is that private roads are maintained by the owners. So if there's a lot of people that tend to drive on them, you have the wear and tear much quicker. And I guess this is more for me. I imagine that should something happen on that road, the homeowners would also be liable for that. Now, I will say there is one little bit in this story that when I was reading it to you just now, it kind of made my eye twitch. When our OP had pointed out that there was the sign that said that it had a private road and to enter only with permission, the neighbor replied with, "But I looked it up and there was public access in the 50s."
Yeah.
So clearly they saw that sign, they wanted to look it up, and they wanted to throw it in our OP's face, because I know that that would not be my first response. I would apologize and say, "I'm so sorry. Is it okay if I can use your road every once in a while?"
That's very true.
Now, I do say, when you have your neighbors, I've heard about those neighborly rivals where they have bad blood between each other. And some instances I can understand why it's there. Other instances I don't. There's just something that rubs me wrong about this specific neighbor, that they would look up because they want it their way before it even became an issue and our OP came out and said, "Hey, look, there's a sign on my road saying that this is private access."
That's very true. I think maybe I had glossed over that part, but that is a very big deal. It's not the 50s. So you using something that, well, was legal back then, what does that pertain to today? So you are right. I retract my statement about how I felt, because maybe it only escalated to that from that conversation because your new neighbor was throwing a bunch of bullshit at you.
And that's where, as I said, I didn't catch it. And I've read this story a couple times. I tend to, just to understand the basis of the story and to understand Redditors when they have the conversations back and forth at the bottom. But this didn't really poke out at me until I read it to you again. And now I know why there was something in this story that really kind of tweaked me for a minute. And it was just that someone essentially premeditated their bad behavior. Well, now that I went ahead and I deduced that, why don't we go ahead and go to our next story and see what you think about taking a dog for a walk? Am I the a-hole for walking our dog while my wife was getting ready for dinner? It feels ridiculous to ask about this, but I'm starting to think I'm missing some key bit of information here. I guess I'm asking that if I am, why? Because it wasn't my intention, and I certainly would like to prevent it from happening again. This Friday, my wife and I had reservations at her favorite restaurant because her birthday is right around the corner. We have a party planned, but this was supposed to be our night together alone. The way the reservation was set up, I would come home from work, change, and immediately drive there, as it's around an hour and a half by car. Yes, we live in hick country. Yes, I am a hick. And no, we aren't moving that I've been made aware of, LOL. The day had gone great so far, and from what I knew, everything was going according to plan. I got home and she's behind schedule getting ready. This is not something that happens for her ever, and I was surprised. But the reason wasn't her fault, and it was barely a 20-minute deviation. However, I was just waiting by the door during that time, and the dog decided he needed out. So I took him for a walk around our yard. It took maybe 5 minutes, and I cleaned everything up and had him put up before my wife was ready. We made it to the dinner reservation by the skin of our teeth, and that was that. We had a great date, and I would have never known she was upset with me until the next morning, when she said that she had never known me to be so impatient, which confused me, and she rolled her eyes and said she noticed that I took the dog for a walk before we left to make her hurry, and that she just didn't want to let my bad mood ruin the night. I had been in a great mood and told her so, and she refused to believe it and got pretty angry, which I haven't been able to calm her down from to even talk about all this again. I really don't understand what I've done wrong here, and I don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole?
What the spasmitibe of miscommunication or lack of communication skills? Because from what I understand and how he explained it, unless I'm missing something pretty big, why would she be upset with you coming home? You guys are planning a date.
She seems to be a little
late. You said that's out of the ordinary for her, but he's going to go walk the dog.
The dog decides apparently he's making the scratching or the whining, so it clearly has to go.
It's 2 birds, 1 stone, right? You're waiting for your wife. You don't want to rush her. You want to make sure your dog has ample amount of bladder space, so that way when you leave, you're not coming back to a mess, regardless of whether or not you keep it in a crate or in the house as a whole. You're supposed to do those things before you leave the house.
Oh, yes, because cleaning up a mess, oh dear.
And you only have yourself to blame as the owner if those type of things happen.
I agree.
So what am I missing? Because what I'm hearing is wins everywhere. He's not pushing his wife. She's having the time. And the dog's getting to go to the bathroom before they leave for an extended amount. Because he says this is an hour and a half to and from.
Correct.
So is an hour and a half one way?
Correct.
So that's 3 hours on the road. That you're not even including what they're doing on the date. So I'm happy for your dog he was able to go before you guys left on this extended date. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I don't see it. I just see where your wife is projecting.
Maybe she felt bad that he had to walk the dog.
No, unless you're like...
she was behind.
Are you slamming the door on your way out? Are you being huffy puffy?
It sounds like you're flabbergasted.
What it sounds like to me is the wife got upset about something. Again, maybe a little more projecting. Maybe she's used to other folks rushing her or being upset that she's not on time. And then she made that situation 10 times worse than it was because he was just being understanding. There's been many times where I've had to wait for Voyse to be ready for something. She likes all her bits and bobs. And this is the thing. I've had to learn throughout our relationship to just calm down. Things will get done and we will get there on time. It's seldom, I don't think I can think of any times where we were late to something that we had either planned, bought tickets for, had a reservation. We've had close calls.
We've had close calls, and the close calls was honestly because of you.
What did I do?
Remember that time at Christmas?
Oh, but we made it.
We did, and you slipped because of it.
Yes, directions. But we made it. It was a good time.
If anything, generally for me, I try and budget out in my mind enough time to make sure that I get all my little baubles. And for you and I, we don't necessarily do, let's say, dinner reservations unless it really is like a super special occasion. And half the time I have the mentality of get there 30 minutes early. So you and I are sitting outside of a restaurant waiting for the doors to open because I'm so picky.
Again, I'm not certain if I've missed something in the story, but OP sounds like they were just taking the dog out to go to the bathroom before they left for a long dinner night. So in my opinion, OP, you're not the a-hole. I would wonder why your wife is upset about you walking the dog before a date and then is also the next day refusing to have a conversation with you. That's odd to me, especially if you're talking about a long-term relationship. Am I missing something?
I guess you'll see. The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. For Redditors, they didn't feel like OP did anything wrong. In fact, some offered advice to OP saying that maybe something else may be going on with their wife. Possibly something is on their mind or troubling them. Other Redditors said maybe it sounds like their wife is being hormonal, or it could be because she's pregnant. Who knows? However, our OP did provide us an update, and let me go ahead and read that now. Hello, I feel weird updating, but I have good news.
Bueno.
And want to share somewhere, and here seems as good a place as any right now. And actually, I wanted to thank everyone for commenting and the people who reached out privately with advice. You really helped me calm down and figure out how to approach talking about this while still seeing where my wife could have been coming from. One person even called exactly what was going on, something I dismissed right away, stupidly. So I came home the next day and brought home pizza from her favorite spot in town, which we never get because of crowds. Because I figured even if I wasn't outright wrong, there was no reason not to make the conversation nice. So after dinner, I asked about the dog again, and after a lot of back and forth and crying that I'll skip explaining, she explained that for the past week or so, she has been feeling weirdly emotional and she couldn't explain it. Some people had mentioned some things here about different health stuff that could cause those sorts of symptoms, but I got pretty nervous and got her in at her doctor's office within a couple days. Well, imagine our embarrassment walking out 5 minutes after getting in and doing a test we could have done at home for like $20 without including insurance companies. She is going to talk to her therapist about meeting every week for a while she adjusts/deals with hormonal changes. We've been laughing about it now because it never crossed our minds she could have been pregnant. Someone commented it, but I still didn't believe it because I am dumb. Never mind that we're both in our 20s and that she switched birth control like 2 months ago, and we may or may not have had unprotected sex during the switch week. Anyway, as stupid as we may be, we are still excited, but waiting until the 12-week mark to tell our families. However, I've been itching to tell someone and can't wait any longer, so here's an update. Wife approved because it's anonymous. Thanks again for the help. I appreciate it a lot, even if I didn't take the advice of the person who was right. So now we know. She was pregnant.
She was pregnant.
I do give her some credit because she said for the past week she has had those hormonal up and downs and she's been trying to figure it out. I'm guessing at this point there was just something that just tipped her past that point and she couldn't anymore. I think the approach that our OP had when it came to, look, he didn't go and he wasn't accusatory. He wasn't angry about it. He brought home her favorite pizza because he just wanted to have a nice conversation. And while there might have been tears, probably due to those hormones that, we experienced during the pregnancy fun times, I think that it's great that at least through the perspective of others on Reddit, our OP was able to talk about the things that might be worrying him, that it could be a problem with. Is it a mental health crisis? Is it something physical? Did you hit your head? Because there's a lot of people who have had very mild concussions, but it starts changing who you are and you never notice.
I think this is just a good story for making sure that when you do think something or feel something is off with you, talk to your loved ones.
I also agree. Well, let's go on to our last story and see what you think about getting the wrong cat. Today, I fucked up by adopting the wrong cat. This is far less harmful than it sounds. About 2 weeks ago, my partner and I went to a cat cafe and had a great time with this sweet, sweet kitty. She let us hold her. She was headbutting us. Amazing. We looked at the board of kitty profiles and read that her name was Tiger and her description was great. Friendly, 2 to 4 years old, found on the streets with 3 kittens and ready for a forever home. We applied. On a Friday, we got confirmed that we could take her home. Amazing. Scheduled to do so on Tuesday. I was walking around town with a couple of my friends that Saturday. The cafe has a big window where you can see all the cats. I suggested we go look at my girlie. The girl working the register told me where she was hanging out. I brought my friends to the window. That's not Tiger. She got it wrong, right? Whatever. I met the kitty a week or so ago. Maybe my perception of her size or coloring was totally off. Oops. Tuesday comes. We go in, cat carrier in tow, sign the papers. Tiger walks over. I say, oh, she can tell we're talking about her. I get up to pet her and the rep goes, oh, that's Zebra, and brings Tiger over. That's not who I thought we were getting? My partner and I look at each other and start a game of anxiety chicken or trying to communicate to one another, I really want a cat. Tiger seems amazing. Let's still take her. We leave and immediately confirmed that's not who we were expecting. So we took the wrong cat home. Turns out that Zebra was not adoptable at the time we met her. My perception of her was not incorrect. We just never confirmed that she was the kitty in the picture. Well, I've had Tiger home for a couple days, and I can confirm that emotionally, I absolutely did not take the wrong cat home. She is my best friend, and I am in love with her. I just want to spoil this beautiful baby forever. I can tell that she was meant to be mine from the transition, anxiety poops / farts. My anxiety manifests the same. The too long don't read. I didn't confirm that the cat I saw in the profile was the cat I was petting. Best fuck up ever. Edit to add that I posted a picture in the comments. I was unaware of the cat tax.
We getting cat tax.
We get cat tax.
Let's see what this baby looks like. Oh, she so cute. Name is Tiger?
Tiger. I love those eyes.
Oh, yeah. That is very green.
It reminds me of like a sage green that gets deeper the more you look in it. I love it.
It looks like fate intervened and ROP got the cat that they were meant to have.
I agree. It's one of those serendipitous moments.
I will be honest, though. As you're reading this story and as they're getting to the very end, my anxiety is peaking. Because they're sitting there going, wait a sec. We now understand that this cat is not the cat that we wanted, but we're still going to follow through with the adoption.
Because we signed all the papers.
What a wild thing to commit to, because this is the thing. Once you bring that cat out of there, it is now yours. Because if it didn't work out, then you're having to rehome it, or things are now in your court to make sure that that cat does find a better home or a better fit. So for you to be like, you know what? Let's roll these dice. And it working out, thank goodness. I'm happy for you, OP. I would not recommend that course of action where you're like, we wanted this one, but they're saying this one is what we're getting. I would never recommend that, because you could be setting yourself up for not this type of story.
I'm just really glad that it had the happy ending. And oh my goodness. I know you and I have gotten into that situation where we've ordered something from a menu, and I absolutely hate places that do not show the prices of things, because then you and I get shell shocked with the price afterwards. And I felt that same feeling of when you and I have looked at each other and been like, but we already ordered it. What do we do now?
We had that problem when we were younger. We had a lot more pride. Life will teach you, look, if that thing is overpriced and it's not within the budget that we had planned, we're not going to have it. But yes, when we were younger, of course we would be like, oh, that's that much. Right, babe? We're going to definitely keep getting that. We've had to learn through our lessons, but
now I'm fine with saying, nope,
no,
that's
thanks.
not in our budget.
Yep, we do it with a smile on our face, and we laugh about how we were definitely wrong on the price, and then we just go on with our life. Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Good for the OP, and I guess Tiger was the name?
Tiger, yes.
Pretty cat.
Beautiful.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays and Wednesdays. We have our Feel Good Fridays on Fridays, of course. That would be silly. Feel Good Friday on another day. And on our Patreon, we have our Damas After Dark episodes, which we're currently sharing paranormal stories.
Those are on Saturdays.
We would also love to thank all of our Patreons for your continued support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of y'all. And as always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today? And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet. I have to say, we watched the movie Coraline this week, and it's been a minute. It's almost probably since it originally came out. So it's been a long time since I've watched it anyway. I did not realize how much more adult that movie is.
Oh, it's creepy.
Because my recollection of that was very much like a kiddie Halloween type feel,
kind of like a Nightmare Before Christmas feel.
Something in there. And it is definitely not that, in my opinion.
No, it is not. Coraline is, I would have to say, one of the creepiest films that is animated and kiddish, that has that underlying vibe of just like, no.
They're sinister in there. And it's a nice one. It's a slow, steady rise up. But once it gets there, you're like, wow, this is a lot darker than I remember it being.
I agree.
So what are you guys watching to get you in the spooky vibes?
We'll see if anybody stayed long enough to hear that question.
Probably not.